Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Darylyn and today I've got a lot of plants to repot because I'm starting a new job on Monday and I don't know what kind of time I'm gonna have going forward, and I have a lot of things to do, so I'm gonna repot some stuff. I don't think I can fit this all into one video, so I think I'm gonna break it into two. So we're gonna start off with the rarest Anthurium that needs to be repotted. I have like 3 of my favorites, and they're going to be going into the real genuine Lechuzapon. I should have enough in this bag. And then I guess we'll go ahead and get started on that. So let's see. I've got my Anthurium metallicum, which has been in moss forever, and it's just like, it's time. I don't know what's going on, like why it's turning chlorotic like that, because the conditions in the grow tent haven't changed, but I think it's time to repot it. Maybe it has some rotted roots or something that I can't see. Here's my Anthurium ace of spades. And then the other one I'm gonna do right now is my Anthurium lentisimilobum. This is genuinely the rarest plant in my collection, and it's been doing really well. It's just been moss, but I think it's time that it graduates. But look how cool that is. So they call this the Spiritus Sancti of Anthurium, and that's partly because it's extremely rare, and it's rare because it doesn't produce a lot of seeds. And then the other reason is that it like actually really kind of does look like a Spiritus Sancti. It has a similar kind of look to it. So very cool plant. Really excited to upgrade it and yeah, see how it does once it is upgraded. This has never been in my grow tent. This plant needs a lot of airflow, so it's always been out on my shelf. These other two, the ace of spades and the metallicum, have been in the grow tent. So let's start with the metallicum. For no particular reason. This I think I'm gonna put into a medium-sized pot. So I think it should fit in here just fine. So we're gonna do that. All right, let's start with the metallicum. Look at that root ball. Let's get all this moss off. Wow, big chunk on this plant. All right, so here's some roots that do not look very good. So, but they look really old. I'm just trying to get as much moss as possible off the roots, and yeah, it's a very tedious process. So good thing I'm not super busy and I don't have like a million other things I need to be doing. This might legit take all night. Okay, so this is what we've got. This really long root. I don't know if you can see, but there's still like a lot of little tiny bits of moss on it. And I know with pon, it's not as essential that you get every single tiny speck of the previous substrate off, but I just really don't want to screw it up with this plant because metallicums are not easy to come by. I do think they are still a bit rare, and they're very slow growing, which I think is part of the reason why you just don't see them that often. So yeah, it would be a really big bummer if I screwed this plant up by moving it to pon, but I just don't think that's keeping it in moss is gonna like help it get bigger or mature at all. I really do think that at this point it's probably gotten really all it can get out of the moss, so it's time to move it up. But Man, this is taking forever, but I think it'll be worth it because I really do not want to screw it up with this plant. All right, well, I think this is about as good as I'm gonna be able to get this. And I totally forgot that when I started filming this, that while I was repotting these kind of rare Anthurium, I was gonna talk about like my thoughts on pond now that I've used it for a year and like the results that I've been getting. So I guess I kind of forgot about that. But yeah, so far a year in pond, I really like it. I've learned a lot. There are some pitfalls of it, and it's definitely not like a magic overnight thing. My experience is that baby plants don't really do that well in pond. At least I haven't figured out the secret strategy to getting baby plants to do well in pond. So I don't put my seedlings in it. I leave, you know, anything seedlings or anything that's unrooted in moss until, you know, it has enough. So far, like, I have no complaints about pond. The only things that you have to be aware of is I do recommend trying to keep your pot on the small side because you can rot your plant if it doesn't dry out fast enough. And then also don't let the pond get up so close to the caterpillar that the caterpillar rots, because I did that one time too. But yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that I've had the results that a lot of people say, like that your plant gets really big really fast. With my Anthurium crystallinum black, that plant got huge so fast in pond. So I definitely like it for that. I've got my Anthurium regal. This plant right here is in a DIY version, but I think I've had the best results using the genuine lechuza pond. So yeah, I definitely recommend. The only thing that sucks about pond is that it's really hard to get. It's always sold out, but I definitely recommend it. I recommend trying it. The other thing though that I've personally encountered is that not all self-watering pots are created equal when using pond. So I mean, I can show you the ones that I use, but it's definitely, like, I haven't really had the best luck with the lechuza pond pots that have like the wick that goes up on like a stick. But I mean, other people use them and they like them fine. I mean, it could just be that I did it wrong or something. But yeah, I really like to use like the 2-pot systems. And that way I think it's easier to flush the pond too. That's something that I don't think I remember seeing in a lot of the pond tutorials when I was first getting started using it, that you do have to flush your pond. Every couple of weeks is probably ideal, but you do need to flush it periodically with clean water so that all of the like the salts and, you know, residues and whatnot from the fertilizer and from watering your plant can be cleaned out. And if you don't, then those build up in your substrate and eventually will start to burn your plant. Like mineral burns. So those are some of the things that you kind of got to keep in mind when you're using pond or when you're getting started with it. Yeah, and then another thing too is that you have to top water your plant for a while after you first start using pond while the roots grow down into, you know, the reservoir area. And if you don't, then your plant will probably, you know, get too dry. But all right, I mean, I think that's about as good as we're gonna get with getting the moss off of this. I mean, I could, of course, oh shoot, I just broke a root. Of course, I could stay up all night and like get it off with a toothbrush or something, but I don't think that's gonna be necessary. I was hoping to put it into this pot, which now that I'm looking at it, like I'm not sure that it's gonna actually fit, but I don't really want to put it in one of the really big pots because, well, A, I don't want to have it taking up that much space in the grow tent, and then B, I think that those bigger pots are just too big for this root system. All right, you know what? No, I think it's like, it's totally fine. It totally fits. There's plenty of space in there. Okay. All right, so that's what we're gonna do for this metallicum. Here's my plant, and I think I'm actually gonna have to dig into this a little bit and make a little trench. And then I kind of like wrap the roots like a bird's nest so that there's enough space in the pot. So kind of like that. So I don't know if you'll be able to see, but that's where we are. Ralphie, honey. He's like right under my feet. Hi. You want to say hi?
Come here.
He's gotten so big. He's so big. Oh my God. Here he is. Say hi. All right, big boy. Okay. Okay, so I do this because I don't want there to be air pockets, and flushing it will also help with that. So I'm just gonna put this over here. I don't think you guys are gonna be able to see. Okay, there. Flush this. And like, you need to flush it really, really, really well because you do not want all that like nasty like rock grit. Okay, so I just like rinsed it until the water that was coming out was running clean and there wasn't like grit accumulating in my sink. So I think this is good, but it is like dripping a lot. So I'm gonna just put it into this reservoir so that it doesn't drip everywhere. And then I'll be able to tell if I need to flush it more by how much like dirt and dust is in the bottom of that. Because yeah, it's really important that you don't let that dust accumulate in your substrate. And this also goes for perlite too. Like if you use perlite in your soil mixture, you really need to rinse it extremely thoroughly because perlite is a type of puffed like volcanic rock, I'm pretty sure. And the dust from it can drain the bottom of your pot and kind of create cement. And it can really screw up your plant. So that is just a pro tip. I feel like I say the same thing in every repot with me, like rinse your perlite, you know, rinse your pond. But I mean, I guess it's a hill that I will absolutely die on because it's really important. All right, so this is good to go, fit in there nicely. I am just gonna set this aside and then grab another plant. So here's the Ace of Spades, and oh my goodness, there's so much root in there. I don't know that this is gonna fit in a medium-sized pot. This might have to go in a bigger one. Yeah, Ace of Spades are kind of notorious for pushing a ton of root, more so than foliage. So looks like there was like some perlite and some bark in here too with the moss. I think this plant is really gonna like being in self-watering because these are notorious for being really thirsty, but yeah, fingers crossed. This is another one that I really like, and I would be really disappointed if it ended up not doing well. So it's kind of nerve-wracking to change it up when a plant is doing okay. But yeah, in the long run, I just don't really think that leaving this in moss is gonna be, you know, the best way to get the plant to grow. I would love to be able to pollinate this at some point, so I would definitely want it to mature. And if the results that I got from my black crystallinum are any indication, it should do well. One of my viewers actually did ask me about the Anthurium Ace of Spades and if I could like do a video about like the history of it and the care and everything. And so I guess I'll just talk about that now, as much as I know about it at least. The Anthurium Ace of Spades is actually a hybrid of unknown parentage. And I don't know if that's because it was created by accident, meaning they don't know what plants were pollinated and it was like a natural pollination. They don't know which pollen took, or if it was created intentionally and then it was just knowledge that was lost. It's not unheard of for plants to be hybrids of unknown parentage just because, you know, they were all in the same nursery and they just don't know what pollinated, you know, which plants. All of the Ace of Spades that are out there, we can't make more of them via pollination because they don't know what the parent plants are. This plant apparently was in tissue culture for a while, but then it wasn't anymore. I guess the original hybrid came out of Hawaii, so it's kind of cool. It's a homegrown American hybrid. So there are two forms of the plant. There's the dark form and the green form, and the dark form is what's really famous and really coveted. And the green form is really beautiful too, but it's not what the plant is famous for. The plant is famous for being like black. But the one thing about this plant that's kind of tricky is that it's really reflective. So if you're not like staring at it dead on, it doesn't look that dark. Look how like reflective it looks. It looks like lighter. And then when you have it, it looks more dark. there are two forms of the plant, and the nursery that's probably the most famous for Anthurium ace of spades is Tazula plants. I mean, they're known for having just absolutely amazing Anthurium, and I would definitely recommend, if you don't already, going onto Instagram and like checking out their Instagram, because they have some really, really amazing Anthurium. And I mean, of course, they're like super expensive, but they're very fun to look at and window shop for because they are just stunning. And, you know, they work with like Doc Block. I think they actually have like authentic, like authorized like Anthurium Doc Block. Their red crystallinums are really well known as well. And they are probably the most prestigious place to get an Anthurium ace of spades from, because they've been selectively breeding them for a really long time, and they're the ones who are, as far as I know, responsible for those ace of spades that are like dark black. They pollinate their plants and they only keep and sell on the darkest seedlings. And you can actually go on their website, and all this information is on their website. So, you know, I'm just, you know, repeating what I read off of their website. But yeah, they are the absolute most prestigious place that you can get an ace of spades from. NSA Tropicals also has them for sale on occasion, and some other places. And they're, you know, of course, very beautiful, and everything that NSA Tropicals puts out is, you know, very high quality, but they're just not quite the same. Like the Tazula plants ace of spades are just famous for being super, super, super dark. And the prices on them have gone up so much. Like, I don't remember if there's been a restock on ace of spades at Tazula anytime recently, but well, since, you know, like prices in the plant market have come down a lot anyway, but I remember the last time I looked and saw a restock, they were selling them for $1,000 each. Like, that's paying that much, you expect some quality right there, is all I'm gonna say. I think another YouTuber, I think it was probably Kaylee Ellen, said something like these plants were in tissue culture and then they came out of tissue culture because nobody wanted them, and now they're, you know, super popular again, so they're probably gonna go back into tissue culture, and then they probably won't be worth as much. And I mean, yeah, I'm sure that ace of spades will probably go back into tissue culture. They probably are already, but the super, super, super dark ones from Tazula plants, those are special and unique, and that's not the plant that you're gonna get from, you know, buying it from a big box store or whatever. And I also just don't really think that the plants are easy enough and like hardy enough to really make good big box store plants. Like, but yeah, like I don't think that you're going to get the dark black, you know, ones that are the level of quality that Tazula plants puts out from tissue culture, because I don't know exactly how it works, but I would imagine that those are like intellectual property or something. Like, I don't know that it would be easy for somebody to get away with tissue culturing and then selling those plants from Tazula, because those are like, it's like you can't really tissue culture and sell like the philodendron Gabby from Gabriella plants, because like it's only a Gabby if you get it from Gabriella plants. So I mean, I don't really know though. But so look at that, that's got so much root compared to the metallicum. Like the metallicum you'd think would have a lot more root, but this is a lot. And this I'm kind of thinking like might be too much for the medium-sized self-watering pot. And I do have a larger size, but I'd rather not put such big pots into the grow tent because there's a lot of stuff in there, and there's a lot of stuff that needs to stay in there. I am going to take the Regal that I had in there out though. Probably won't get to that in this episode. You have to stick around for another repot with me. But yeah, I mean, as far as I know, that's like the history on the plant. And, you know, before somebody is like, oh, well, maybe we should just try and hybridize a bunch of plants and see if we can get something that looks like an ace of spades. It's like, okay, yeah, you could do that. But the thing is, though, is that the plants that became ace of spades, like they could just have been a mutation. So even if you did choose the right parents, you might not get the actual mutation that ended up looking like ace of spades. So it's going to probably be a mystery forever unless I guess somebody like sequences the DNA, which I don't know how likely that is to ever happen. But another thing too is this could be, I think they call it like an F2 hybrid, which is a hybrid that is like of two hybrids. So like the parent plants could be hybrids as well. So once you start taking into account that one or both of the parent plants could be hybrids, and then the plant could be the result of a mutation that is very unlikely to ever be repeated. I mean, it's going to be really, really difficult to ever figure out really like what this plant is. So I think it's cool. I think it's cooler for it to stay an enigma, to be completely honest. So, all right, I'm just going to rinse the roots off. Okay, so that's what we have. Wow, that's so much root. I'm so nervous to put this into like a big pot. Ugh. All right, let's see. I don't think that this is, oh yeah, no, that's way too small. There's no way. All right, so I don't have to put this in a big one. So I have this one, and I've already used this one. I really want to put the Lungissima lobum into the real Lechuzapon, and I'm wondering if I am not going to have enough if I put this into here. Dude, yeah, this like fills this up. Wow, that's got a lot of root. I'm gonna have to like practice my bird's nest technique to get this into this larger size pot too. They definitely live up to their reputation as being like super rooters. And there's an aerial root at the top that I would really like to get into the pond. So, oh my goodness. Do another attempt. I don't have a bigger pot than this. This is the biggest pot I have. So this plant is just gonna have to, all right, that'll fit. So I have a bunch of DIY pon, which I was kind of saving for other stuff. But I mean, I can make more, but I don't want to run out of the real Lechuzapon. I really wanted to put this in genuine Lechuzapon. All right, that's okay. I'm just gonna put it in here with the real stuff. And I think I have a little bit more Lechuzapon hiding somewhere. You know what? No, like this, it has definitely got thick enough roots for the DIY pond. So I'm gonna use the DIY, which is just like right here. So DIY pond is just pumice, zeolite, and lava rock. Generally when I make it, I like to do 20% zeolite and then like 40-40 of the lava rock and the pumice. But I previously used to do like equal parts of all three, and that was fine. But apparently you can get away with using less zeolite, and the zeolite is the most expensive ingredient, so that might be good. Oh my god, I don't even think this is gonna fit in here. How am I gonna do this? Oh my god. Okay, I think that is actually like pretty good. Just kind of have to like pick the roots up that are like pushed down and then kind of reposition them in more of a circular pattern. Oh my god, this has been like blocking. And so the other thing too with the DIY pond is that you're gonna have to put in a bit more effort to make sure the water is a good pH and fertilize and all that stuff. My plants in the genuine Lechuzapon, like they still get the same like nutrient solution and everything, but it's not as important. With DIY pond, obviously there's not like slow release fertilizer in it, so you have to make sure you're fertilizing the plant. All right, so that's that. I'm honestly pretty surprised that I got all of those roots into here, but here is the results. And you can see in the front, hopefully you can see, might not be able to because of the leaves, but that's that. I'm just gonna stick this over here so that it can kind of drain. All right, so this is kind of like the grand finale, the Lungissima lobum. I think it's gonna have enough root to go into this and not the like the itty bitty tiny size. So let's see. So let's take this out. And I don't really know like a ton about this Anthurium as far as like history or anything goes, but I did get this from Ivan at one of the Aquagenera pop-ups, and he told me that they're really, really rare. The reason is that they don't produce a lot of seeds. Yeah, okay, so this has like a lot of like dead and rotted roots on it. So it's good to pick those off. And this is on like a really long rhizome, or like a really long chunk, which I used to be really, really liberal about cutting rhizomes because I wanted to like propagate them and make more plants. But honestly, like, I have kind of changed my opinion on that because Ivan told me that it's much, much better to let the plant have the bigger rhizome and then to take a top cutting once the plant is more mature. So that is what I am going to do going forward. Wow, there's a lot of like dead root on here. I mean, it's not super surprising or really even concerning to me just because, you know, it was imported and stuff, and it's obviously, it just put out this leaf, so clearly the plant is okay, but it's always good to, you know, get it cleaned up, and we'll get it into some clean substrate and hopefully it does really well. But look at these two really long aerial roots that I'd like pushed into the moss. They rooted, it worked. Yeah, I mean, it's so long, I could totally cut that. I don't want to though, I'm not going to. I'm gonna follow Ivan's advice, but you know. All right, so let's see. I mean, I didn't think I was gonna have trouble fitting it into the medium-sized pot, and I'm not having trouble. It's just that the rhizome's so long that, yeah, unfortunately, I don't think it's gonna fit into a small-sized pot, which is kind of too bad because I don't really like to put plants in to pots with like this much extra space when they're Anthurium going into pond. But I mean, I don't think I really have a choice, and I think this will be fine. I mean, like, I could do it like, you know, crooked, but all right, this will be fine, I think. I'm excited actually to see how this plant does. It did really well in the moss, and the moss was pretty much always wet. Like, I never really let it dry out fully, so I think it's gonna do well in self-watering as well. And this plant does really well in, you know, the ambient humidity in my bedroom, which tends to be around like 65%. And it really needs airflow. Like, that was the thing that Ivan like emphasized. He was like, with this plant, it needs airflow. So I've never put it in the grow tent, but if you are thinking of, you know, shelling out the money to get one of these, just make sure that if you put it in like a Millsbow or something, that Millsbow has a fan and it's getting opened, you know, at least once a day, because this is an expensive plant to have decline. I was really surprised that it doesn't have any sort of bacterial spots on it or anything. It's just solid. Definitely a cool one. And I've been seeing like these plants pop up. Oops. I've been seeing these plants pop up more and more on Instagram. So I actually like wouldn't be surprised if this plant kind of has a moment this year, at least among like really serious Anthurium collectors, because yeah, it's a very, very cool plant and it's very unique. So that was kind of the reason that I was attracted to it. This is like nothing I'd ever had before. All right, I'm not super worried about there being air pockets in this because there weren't a ton of roots. But you just still want to be careful because air pockets are not good. All right, so I'm gonna flush this, and actually let me move the camera so that you can see like all the grit that comes out, just to emphasize like how important it is to rinse your pond. All right, so here we go. Like, look at all of that. That all came out of this. That's disgusting. That's like not good for your plant. So I'm gonna flush it down the sink now, and then I'm gonna rinse it again to make sure I got it all. All right. So I think that's pretty good. It's for the most part coming out running clear, and it looks like it's potted in there a little bit crooked for now, but it'll straighten out and like adjust to the light probably in a couple of days. Cool. Okay, so that is our final result. A very cool plant. And yeah, I have like a ton more plants out here that I was like, oh, I'm gonna repot all these. And I've been filming for an hour and I only did those 3. So I don't think that I'm going to be repotting all these tonight. It's like past dinner time. So I think I'm gonna actually put everything away and then eat dinner and then do some more of these another day. But yeah, thanks so much for chilling with me, repotting my rarest-ish Anthurium. They're definitely up in my top favorite Anthuriums. So if you guys would like to see an Anthurium collection video from me, comment down below and let me know, because I haven't done collection videos on any of the genuses that I keep. And I also have plants in my greenhouse that I don't show you guys very often because it's like not here and I'm lazy and I don't film when I'm there usually. Also, I had a lot of fun with the giveaway. There'll probably be another one coming up, so keep your eye out for that too. All right, thanks guys, bye.